Point of Impact podcast with Rick McDaniel. Thanks for joining us today. Get ready to be inspired and motivated to live a high-impact life. Now, here's Rick.
Welcome to another episode of the Point of Impact podcast. I'm Rick McDaniel. It's great to have you joining with us today. And today we kind of turned the century mark. Last week we celebrated 100 episodes. And so now on to another 100 episodes. And today I want to do it one of my one-off messages, talks, whatever you want to call it. I will start next week talking about decision making, how to make great decisions, and how those decisions can bless your life and give you lots of success and happiness. And I love talking about decision making. Decisions determine destiny was one of these messages I used to do years and years ago when I first started out speaking and preaching. So I look forward to that. But before we do that, today I want to do this episode based on an article that I wrote for Fox News at the beginning of the year. It was actually published on New Year's Day, and it was an enormously popular article and was then picked up by Apple News and spread on their feed. And I don't have the exact numbers, but the last I heard it had gone over 1 million in readers. Just to give you a sense of scope, what we're talking about, that is obviously a huge number of people. I've had only one other article that I know of that's gone to that level. And the article was shared maybe 300 times, something like that last time I checked. So it was a big article, had a big impact, and I just thought, man, it's one thing to write, it's another thing to speak, and I just think it would be a mistake on my part if I didn't share that content with you. You can read the article, sure, but I can expand on an article that, might take you, maybe 6 or 7 minutes to read, maybe even 5 if you're a fast reader. And I can expand on it for a lot longer than that here today. And then I think I can add many things that wouldn't be in that article. So even if you read the article and you're like, hey, I'm one of those 1 million people, Rick, well, that's great. But there's more that I can expand on. And so I want to do that today. That article, just 5 minutes a day for your best year ever. Just, do this for 5 minutes a day and have the best year you've ever had. And that's a bold statement. That's a bold claim, but I'm telling you, I am certain that I can back it up for you today. So let's just jump right in here. Just a daily practice, just a daily 5-minute practice that if you would do it, it would have an enormous impact on your spiritual and mental health. It would set you in a direction that would be the best possible direction that you could go in, and could really make this year, irregardless of, whatever's happening. COVID's still sticking around. We know it's coming to an end, but all the changes, all the stuff, this can still be your best year ever. Absolutely 100% believe that. And it has to do with this daily practice. Let me begin with a quote by the author and the leadership expert, John Maxwell. He said, "You will never change your life until you change something you do daily. The secret of your success is found in your daily routine." I believe this with all my heart. I absolutely am a complete believer in the power of a daily routine, the amazing benefit of a daily routine, the absolute crucial nature of having a daily routine. In my public speaking, in my preaching, many times in different ways, I would joke about, if you ever wanted to take me out, if you ever wanted to assassinate me, it would not be hard, because I have a very consistent daily routine, and it wouldn't take you long to figure out, where I am and what I'm doing. I mean, that's just, that's been my key to my success in a nutshell, is having systems and creating them and living by those systems. That's how you can write 8 books. That's how you can start a church from scratch and build it up over a number of years. That's how you can stay physically healthy, have a marriage for over 30 years, raise a couple of great kids. I mean, that's how you do this stuff. It's about having a routine and sticking to that routine day in and day out, year in and year out. I mean, this stuff just works. It is key to achieving your goals and to seeing your dreams come true. There's no way around that. That is the way it is. If you are approaching life in a haphazard way, I just hope that you will hear today, and today will be the beginning, because this is just one. I think it's the most important one, frankly, but it's just one of the many routines that you need to have in your life. But, a lot of people right now are trying to get healthy and, beginning of the year and really trying to do that. I've never had that, because I've never been out of shape or overweight, because I've just stuck to my routine. I've stuck to the workout routine that I've had. It started when I was an athlete, and I just continued it on into the rest of my adult life. And that's just one example. And I just know so many people that let themselves go, and then they try to get back in shape, and how hard that is. And then even when they do, what still might be left over from the time and the years maybe of not taking care of themselves the way that they should. So I'm not, by the way, trying to discourage anyone. It's never too late. And there's some incredible studies that say even into this is hard to believe, but even into your 60s and 70s, if you'll start exercising, it can have incredible beneficial impact on your life. So please, by all means, keep it up. But if you could just stick with it, if you're younger, it would just be such a better thing to do. The power of the daily routine. Would you like to change your life for the better? Yeah. Can you just imagine what it'll be like, if this year was just like really like your best, most successful, in the best sense of the word success, full success, not just finances or stuff, but all aspects of your life, your relationships, your career, your health, your spirituality, your relationship with God, your, what else? Everything that makes up your relationships. How could I leave that one out? Your relationships, everything that goes into who you are, to have the best year that you've ever had. And it is absolutely possible. It is definitely, positively possible. I mean, let's just go back. You want to get healthy, right? You're like, this is the year. I'm going to start eating better. I'm going to exercise. I really want to look better. I want to have more energy. This is what I want to do. Or maybe it is your relationships, maybe your marriage, and you're like, it's the most important relationship. It needs to be stronger. It needs to be better. It needs to be more loving, more supportive, and you say, you know what? Even if my spouse doesn't make the effort, and by no means am I hoping that they don't, because it will certainly work better if both are. But even if they're not, you say, hey, I'm going to initiate it. I'm going to do my part. It could be your finances. I talked a little bit a couple episodes ago, about net worth, about what's your overall net worth. It isn't just about what you make, but about not having debt and being in a really healthy place financially. Your finances are in order, and when you look toward retirement, you've got a plan. It's not frightening to you. It's something that is coming, and you're planning for it appropriately. It could be just like a long time dream that you've had, and it's like, could this be the year 2022 and it finally comes true? But that dream will require goals, and those goals will require initiatives, strategies to execute in order to get the dream to a reality. So that's just some, and there could be many more that you're thinking about for this year. But if there was only one thing you could do what would it be? And what if I told you today that one daily practice could end up helping you with all those other goals that you have? That this one practice would be like the foundation out of which those other practices would develop. Wouldn't be that you just do this and everything else falls into place. You still got to work on your health and your finances, your relationships, your career, your dreams. But this one daily practice, which can be done in as little as 5 minutes a day, much like exercise, where you can exercise for shorter amounts of time and get benefit. But if you want even greater benefit, you can exercise even longer. Same concept here. And I'll develop that here in a moment. But it absolutely is a practice that you can do in 5 minutes each day. So what is it? What's the silver bullet here? What's the magic pill, Rick, that does all this? And it's something that's called a devotional time, or a quiet time, or some of the terms that are used. This is a time where ideally you do this at the beginning of the day. Now, you can do it at lunchtime. You can do it in the evening. You could even do it before you go to bed. Any time you do it will be good. But I would say that if you want to set your day right from the start, I think the ideal time to do it is first thing in the morning. In fact, I think it's something that you should do before you do other things, before you let your mind even get going, before you look at your email or get on the internet or read the paper or any other thing that you do, or get involved with your kids and all of the morning routine and uproar and potential chaos, that this is the first thing that you do. I mean, of the many changes that you could make in this new year, there is nothing that will have more impact than this. This 5 minutes a day, and I almost sound like some kind of infomercial, but it will change your life. And it won't just change your life this year, it'll change your life forever. And I mean that in the grandest sense of the word. It will change your life literally for eternity. So those are big words, and they got to be backed up. And that's what I will do. I will back them up for you. But let me just explain exactly what I'm talking about. So a devotion is a brief, it could be, you can call it a reading or a meditation that's based on a scripture verse, a Bible verse, that would take you maybe 2.5 or 3 minutes to read. Now, there are some that are much shorter than that. There are some that there's one for every day of the year, and those tend to be quite short. You could read one of those in probably a minute and a half a day. But the ones that I write and the ones that I think are best are a little bit longer, because they can get into a little bit more material, and I think that it makes it more interesting. The stories are more interesting, and so let's say 2.5, 3 minutes max. That's all it takes to read. Now, you probably, if you listen to this podcast, you've heard me talk about the fact that I came out with one of these devotional books just a few weeks back, or I guess almost a month now. And so obviously it's high on my list of things that I'm thinking about. But I also think that, if I'm going to have a podcast and put out a book, it might be good to explain in detail, what is the purpose? Like, what do you do with this? This isn't just like a book that has chapters that you read. It's different. A devotional book is based on these readings, these devotions, these one a day. And in this case, my book, This Is Living, is 100 days. So there's 100 of them. And what you do is you read it, and it's like a story, something interesting that grabs your attention. Some of the stories already I've heard from people that are like, wow, I've never heard this before. I didn't know anything about the Mona Lisa was stolen. I didn't know that it wasn't popular for like 400 years. I didn't know anything about that. Or they'll be like, wow, I didn't even know anything about that. There's this place in Pennsylvania that is literally a fire is burning underneath it, and they're like evacuating the whole town because it'll be burning for like another 100 years. I never heard of that. Or I can't believe that there are these condors that fly that only use their wings 1% of the time. How is it possible? One of the bigger birds in the world, I think the wingspan is like 36 feet or something. I mean, come on, think about how big a bird that is. And then it hardly ever flaps its wings. So there's just interesting stuff to interest you, grab your attention. And then there is a scripture verse from the Bible that is tied into that story in some way. And then there is the application. In other words, here's the story and here's the scripture. And then here's what it means for you. Here's what it means for your life. Here's how you can apply this in your life. Many of them are inspirational in nature, motivational, encouraging. Some are inspirational in the challenging sense of the word, like, hey, like, watch out. You gotta be ready for this. You gotta be aware of this. Like when I got robbed when I was in Italy, and I tell that story, like a lack of vigilance on my part. Don't turn your back on your stuff when you're getting a train ticket. Otherwise, your briefcase may be gone. So that's what it is. And then after you read these devotions, and let me just say, when you read them, what's going to happen is you are going to be filled with this sense of hope and faith and inspiration, and it's just going to set your whole attitude right for the day. Then you spend a couple minutes in prayer, talking to God about your day and asking for his help and guidance, talking to God about the people that you care about and maybe some of the needs or issues in their lives. So this is how you see it can go. It can go for more than 5 minutes. You can end up spending more time in prayer than just a few minutes. I spend much longer than that, for instance, myself. But it's also something you may work up to. You don't jump in the gym and, throw couple big 45 plates on either side of the bar and say, hey, I'm going to do some bench press right off the bat. You got to work yourself up to that. So maybe start with the bar, or maybe one 45 plate on each side and you go from there. So sort of the same thing goes. Even with the devotions, you could have like a journal out there and as you read the devotion, you just sort of write down some of the things that it speaks to you about, and you kind of take it in a deeper way than just reading it and being done with it. But you got to start somewhere, and this is a great way to start. And imagine how just set you are for the day, because now you've been inspired and you've prayed, and now you're just beginning your day with this positive outlook. And then watch what happens. All of a sudden, you find that you're able to better cope with the stress, the anxiety, and even the situations where you may need a shift of perspective. All of those things happen because you started out with the right mindset. You practice this, and it does wonders for your overall mental health and well-being. And of course, it does wonders for your spiritual health and growth, because you are communing with God, because you're reading his word, right? The Bible is his words to us. And then you're praying. So now you're talking to God. So God talks to you through the scripture verse. Then you talk to God. There's a powerful scripture that in James, the book of James, very practical book, maybe the most practical book in the whole. It's like the how-to book of the Bible. If you want to read a book that'll tell you, how to communicate, how to deal with conflict, how to gain wisdom, that's the book. That is the book in the Bible. In chapter 4, verse 8, it says, draw near to me and I will draw near to you. If you want to get closer to God, what the Bible is saying is come close to God and God will come close to you. So how do you do that? Well, this is exactly how you do it. So you're going to feel closer to God. You are going to feel better mentally. You're going to enter the day. Again, you can do it at lunch if you need a boost at lunch. You can do it when you get home at night, or maybe if you work from home after your work day's over. You can do it right before you go to bed if you want to do it that way, and you find that works better for you. But whatever way you do it, it's going to bring you these incredible benefits, both emotionally and spiritually. I mean, it's just amazing what can happen. The number one resolution year in and year out is always better physical health. Eating better, exercising. That's been it every year that I've ever looked. But I'm going to tell you what, last year revealed, how vital mental health is. How vital it is to have good mental health. And in fact, I would guess that the resolution to have better mental health jumped significantly since this pandemic began. And I bet it's at an all-time high. Now, look what happens. If you can have this daily devotional time, it's going to give you greater inspiration, insight, peace. It's going to open you up to more love and joy in your life. Isn't that what we want? Isn't that what we're after? And all of this happens because you have this daily practice where you really get your mind right. The mental outlook. And here's exactly how it works. The Bible calls it renewing your mind. Romans 12:2. Don't be like the people of this world, but let God change the way you think. Let God renew your thinking. Then you know how to do everything that is good and pleasing to Him. So when you read these scripture verses, you begin to think differently. And of course, thinking differently leads you to start acting differently. The Bible's guidance helps you to live healthier, to be more loving, to have greater peace, to have a belief in the future that maybe you've struggled to have. Living out God's plan for your life becomes natural because each day you're practicing this habit. And so each day you're coming close to God. God's coming close to you. His peace, joy filling your life. And then living out God's plan, it just becomes more and more natural. And then over time, this is just transformative. Over time, you keep doing this and it just changes you for the better. You become really like a new person, like a better version of yourself, or the best version of yourself that you've been after for so long. Now, I want to be clear. I'm not saying all your problems will disappear. I'm not saying everything will go your way. I'm not saying there won't continue to be challenging situations in your life, challenging people in your life. It's just the way you react and respond will be better. It will simply be better. You will do a better job of dealing with these challenges that you have. You'll have more peace. You'll have more wisdom. You could end up reading a devotion that day, and then that very day, this happens all the time. The very thing that you just read about happens, and you're right ready for it. There's a devotion about 7 seconds can destroy your life, about like in a very short period of time, you can make a decision that could end up imploding your entire life. And maybe you read that, and then that very day, you're faced with something. Someone wants you to do something that is unethical, at work that if you did it and was found out could cost you your job and maybe even legal problems. Maybe there's someone in your life that is flirting with you and you could give in to that and just mess up your whole marriage and family. And you read that and then that happens and you're like, oh no, I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to give in to this. This is going to wreck my life. And glad I read that today just to remind me, don't do that. The more that you read, the more that you gain wisdom. And there's nothing more valuable than having wisdom. There's nothing like wisdom. Wisdom is so great. This is why when King Solomon was told you can have anything you want, wish for whatever you would wish for from God, what did he wish for? Wisdom. And he became the wisest man in the world. That's what he wished for. Of all the things, that's the greatest thing to have in life. It's greater than possessions and money. It's greater than status or fame. Now, having wisdom can lead to all those things, by the way. It can. But the foundation of it is the wisdom. More important than just intellect or even education. And I'm a big believer in both. Wisdom can bless your life in so many ways. Then you think about that time in prayer, which, by the way, if you start this daily practice, I would almost guarantee you that over time, that prayer time will expand. It will become longer because you'll enjoy spending that time with God and feeling his presence and feeling like you can unburden yourself. It just lifts you. Jesus says, come to me, all who are burdened, and I will give you rest. Place your burdens on me. God doesn't want us to carry all these things. And when you give them to God, it just frees you in so many ways. So you're praying. Also, of course, you're praying for people that you love and care about. And the more you do that, then you see things happen in their lives. And you're like, oh, this is exactly what I prayed for. It's happening exactly like I prayed it would. And you see that, and then that builds your faith to pray for even bigger and greater things. I mean, it's such a powerful dynamic. It just works so well. And it can be done just 5 minutes a day. You can do it. Now, look, I'm partial to getting my devotional. Sure. Yeah, I think that's obviously, I wrote it. I think it's the best one. I think it's filled with fantastic stories. And go on Amazon and you get it. And This is Living, Daily Inspiration to Live Your Faith. And you get the book and you start out. But it's not the only devotional out there. So, maybe you already have one at your house that someone gave you or you got, but you never used. Maybe you want to do something that's online. I think that some of those are good, but they tend to be a little bit shorter. And I think the stories really do make it more interesting. But look, in the end, do it, however you do it. And so many people get intimidated with reading the Bible. I don't know where to start and how can I read and I won't understand. That's what's great about a devotional. It's just one verse, basically. And then the verse gets explained and you see it in the context of the story and you see the application. And so you're like, oh, now I understand that. And it just sets you. And just imagine if you can just do this consistently. Just like if you exercise and eat right consistently, you just become very healthy physically. You look good, you feel good, you have energy. People are saying, you look so great. You feel good. The same thing spiritually and mentally. You have this practice. You do this daily practice. It's a lot less time than a workout, I'll tell you that. And you're on your way. More peace and more joy in your life, less anxiety, less fear, less negative stress, better perspective, better attitude. Wow. Give it a try. What can it hurt? Give it a try. Get the devotional. Start doing it. Go to rickmcdan.com. You write me an email and say, hey, Rick, it works. Yes. And if you say it doesn't work, I got to hear that. I just can't imagine, but I tried it. But give it a try. and see if this doesn't turn out to be your best year ever. Hope you'll do it. Look forward to seeing you next week on the Point of Impact podcast. Have a great week.
You've been listening to the Point of Impact podcast with Rick McDaniel. Thanks for tuning in, and we look forward to you joining us for our next episode.